I never thought I'd be the villain in my own story. That's what I told myself every time Marcus worked late. Every time he came home smelling like someone else's perfume. Every time he looked at me with those tired, distant eyes that used to light up when I walked into a room. I told myself I deserved better. I told myself I was justified. I told myself a lot of lies. It started 6 months ago when I began seeing Dr. Sarah Chen for my anxiety. Marcus suggested it. Said I was always on edge, always picking fights, always making him feel like he couldn't do anything right. He said therapy might help me work through my issues. So I went. Every Thursday at 3 p.m. Dr. Chen was everything I needed her to be. Patient. Understanding. She nodded in all the right places when I complained about Marcus forgetting our anniversary, about him prioritizing work over date nights, about how I felt invisible in my own marriage. She never once suggested I might be part of the problem. The affair didn't start with intention. It never does it? It started with Jake from the marketing department complimenting my presentation. Then it was coffee to discuss a project. Then it was drinks after a particularly long day. Then it was his hand on my knee in his car, and me not moving it away. I told myself it was just emotional support. Just someone seeing me the way Marcus used to. I told myself I'd stop before it went too far. I didn't. The first time Jake kissed me, I kissed him back. The first time we ended up at his apartment, I told myself it was a mistake. The second time, I told myself it would be the last time. By the fifth time, I'd stopped counting and started planning how to hide it better. Marcus suspected nothing. Or maybe he did and just didn't care anymore. He'd become a ghost in our house, present but not really there. His responses were automatic. How was your day? Fine. Want to watch something? Sure. I love you. Silence. I filled that silence with Jake's attention, with his texts that made me feel wanted, with the thrill of sneaking around like I was someone's priority instead of someone's obligation. Dr. Chen knew. I'd slipped up during a session 3 months in, mentioned meeting someone for coffee and blushed when she asked if it was a friend. She didn't press. She just smiled that knowing smile and said, "Sometimes we seek external validation when we're not getting it at home." It felt like permission. Last Thursday, I left work early. A migraine that wasn't really a migraine. I just wanted to cancel my therapy session and go home. Maybe surprise Marcus by actually being present for once. Maybe order his favorite takeout. Maybe try. I was going to end things with Jake. I decided that morning. It was getting too complicated, too risky. Marcus deserved better, even if our marriage was dying. Even if I'd already killed it. I pulled into the parking lot of Dr. Chen's building at 2:47 p.m. to cancel in person rather than text. Professional courtesy or something. The office was on the 2nd floor, and as I climbed the stairs, I heard voices through the door that was cracked open. Dr. Chen's voice, familiar, soothing, and Marcus's voice, unfamiliar because I hadn't really heard him speak with emotion in months. I froze on the landing. "You've done everything right," Dr. Chen was saying. "You've tried to communicate. You've suggested counseling. She's refused to see the issues. I just feel so guilty," Marcus said, and his voice cracked. "Like I'm abandoning her when she needs help." "Marcus, you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. We've talked about this. She's had 6 months to show progress, to acknowledge the damage she's done to this marriage. Instead, she's gotten worse." My heart stopped. "The affair," Marcus whispered. "I know about Jake. I've known for 2 months. I keep hoping she'll end it on her own. That she'll realize what she's throwing away." The floor tilted beneath me. "She won't," Dr. Chen said gently. "People like her, they don't have the self-awareness. They blame everyone else. You've seen it in her sessions, how she frames everything as your fault. You've been telling me what she says in therapy?" Marcus sounded shocked, like this was new information. "Only because you needed to understand the full picture to make an informed decision about your future. Patient confidentiality matters, but so does protecting you from further emotional abuse." The walls started closing in. "So the plan," Marcus said slowly. "You really think this will work? Making it look like her choice to leave? It's the only way you'll be free without the guilt consuming you. We'll document her instability in her sessions. I'll note her resistance to addressing her infidelity. When you file for divorce, she'll have no credibility. She'll look like the unstable spouse who drove you away, and you'll be the victim who tried everything to save the marriage." There was a pause. "And us?" Marcus asked quietly. After you're free, we can finally stop hiding." I don't remember backing down the stairs. I don't remember getting into my car. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting in our driveway for 3 hours, watching the sun set through my windshield, understanding with perfect clarity that I had destroyed my life while my therapist and my husband built a new one on the rubble. Marcus came home at 7 p.m. Saw me in the car. Knocked on the window with that same tired expression. "You okay?" he asked. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the man I'd married 7 years ago. The man who used to bring me coffee in bed. The man who learned to cook my favorite meals when I was stressed. The man I'd slowly poisoned with neglect and betrayal until he'd found comfort in the one person I trusted to help me. "I heard you," I said. "At Dr. Chen's office." His face went white, then red, then completely blank. "How much?" "Everything." He stood there for a long moment, hand still on my car door. Then he nodded once and walked into the house. I sat in that car until midnight, understanding that every choice I'd made in the last 6 months had been a shovel digging my own grave. I'd cheated on my husband while paying a therapist who was sleeping with him to document my dysfunction. I'd been so busy feeling sorry for myself that I'd missed my own husband falling out of love with me and into the arms of the woman I had trusted with my darkest thoughts. The worst part? I couldn't even blame them. When I finally walked into the house, Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of whiskey. He didn't look angry. He looked relieved. "I wanted to tell you," he said. 100 times. But Sarah said, "Don't." I held up my hand. "Don't make her the villain in this. She's not the one who broke our marriage." He looked at me with something like surprise. Maybe even respect. "No," he agreed quietly. "You did that all on your own." I nodded. Sat down across from him. Felt the weight of 6 months of lies and betrayals crushing my chest. "Jake ended it yesterday," I said. Said he wanted something real, not someone who was using him to avoid fixing her actual problems. Marcus laughed, but it was hollow. "Funny. That's exactly what Sarah said about you." We sat there in the kitchen we'd picked out together, at the table we'd built from an IKEA kit on our first anniversary, surrounded by the life we'd created and I demolished. "What happens now?" I asked. Marcus finished his whiskey and looked at me with eyes that were finally completely empty of love. "Now you get to watch me leave without any guilt at all." The next morning, Marcus was gone before I woke up. No note. No text. Just an absence that felt permanent. I called in sick to work. Couldn't imagine sitting through meetings pretending everything was normal when my entire existence had imploded in a therapist's office. I spent the day on our couch, staring at my phone, waiting for him to call. He didn't. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Chen's office. "We need to reschedule your standing appointment. Dr. Chen is no longer able to see you as a patient. We can refer you to another therapist in the practice." I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed in our empty house like something breaking. She didn't even have the courage to tell me herself. I called Marcus 17 times that day. 17 times it went to voicemail. On the 18th call, the line was disconnected. He'd blocked my number. That's when the panic really set in. I drove to his office. The receptionist, Amanda, gave me a look I'd never seen before. Pity mixed with disgust, the kind of look you give someone who doesn't know everyone already knows their shame. "He's not here," she said, not meeting my eyes. "He's working remotely for a while. Do you know where he's staying?" "I'm not allowed to give out that information." "Amanda, please. I'm his wife." She finally looked at me. "He specifically said not to tell you." "I'm sorry." I stood there in that pristine office lobby, surrounded by people who'd seen me at company parties with Marcus's arm around my waist, and understood that I'd become the story they'd tell over lunch. The cautionary tale. The wife who threw it all away. I tried his parents. His mom answered on the first ring. "Is Marcus there?" Silence. Long enough that I knew the answer before she spoke. "He told us what happened," she said quietly. "Catherine had always been kind to me. Had welcomed me into their family like a daughter. Had sent me care packages when I was stressed. Had called me every birthday. All of it. I can explain." "Can you?" Her voice wasn't angry. It was worse. It was tired. "Can you explain why you betrayed my son? Why you made him feel so worthless that he sought comfort from someone else?" "He betrayed me too," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "He was sleeping with my therapist. After you were sleeping with someone from your office. After you stopped trying. After you made him feel invisible in his own marriage." She paused. "He waited for you to choose him. For months. You chose someone else every single time. Where is he?" "Somewhere you can't hurt him anymore." She hung up. I spent that night going through our photos. 7 years of memories stored in my phone. Our wedding day. Marcus's face when he saw me walking down the aisle. Our honeymoon in Greece, both of us sunburned and laughing. The first house we bought, sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes. His 30th birthday party, my arms around his neck, both of us drunk on cheap wine and happiness. I tried to pinpoint when it changed. When I changed. When his love stopped being enough and I started looking for validation everywhere else. I couldn't find a single moment. It had been gradual. Death by 1,000 cuts, except I'd been holding the knife the whole time. The divorce papers arrived on Friday, 72 hours after I'd heard my world ending through a cracked office door. Marcus was claiming irreconcilable differences. He wanted the house, the car, everything we'd built together. And here's documentation. 6 months of therapy notes from Dr. Chen detailing my emotional instability, my refusal to address marital issues, my pattern of blame and deflection. She'd built a case against me using my own words. I called the only lawyer I knew, Michelle, who'd handled our house purchase. She listened to my story without interrupting. "Do you have proof of their relationship?" she asked finally. "I heard them talking about it. That's hearsay. Not admissible." "Do you have texts? Photos? Anything concrete?" "No." "Then you have nothing. And worse, you have 6 months of documented mental health concerns from a licensed therapist, plus an admitted affair of your own." She sighed. "I'll represent you, but I need you to understand how this looks. You're going to lose." "How much?" "Everything." I started calling Marcus's friends. Our friends. People we'd spent weekends with, hosted dinners for, celebrated birthdays and anniversaries with. They all knew. David answered, but his voice was cold. "Look, I don't think we should talk. Marcus is staying with us right now and it's pretty awkward. He's at your place? Don't come here. Please. Jen already said if you show up, we're calling the police. I just want to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you. Can you blame him?" David's voice cracked. "We all saw it, you know. How you changed. How you stopped caring. Marcus tried so hard to reach you and you weren't there anymore. He was sleeping with my therapist. After you were sleeping with Jake. After you broke his heart. After he spent months trying to save a marriage you'd already abandoned." A pause. "You don't get to be the victim here." He hung up. I tried Sarah next. She'd been my best friend since college. Maid of honor at my wedding. The one who held my hair back when I had food poisoning on vacation. The one who knew everything. "I can't believe you didn't tell me," I said when she answered. "Tell you what?" "That people knew. That Marcus knew. That I was destroying everything." She laughed, but it was bitter. I tried. "Remember 3 months ago when I said you were playing with fire? When I said you needed to end things with Jake and focus on your marriage? You told me I was being judgmental. That I didn't understand how unhappy you were?" I did remember. I'd been angry at her for weeks after that conversation. "You're right," I whispered. "I'm sorry. I can't do this," she said. "I love you, but I can't watch you self-destruct and pretend it's everyone else's fault. Marcus was my friend too. He's a good man who deserved better than what you gave him. Call me when you're ready to actually take responsibility for your choices." She hung up too. By Sunday, I understood the full scope of my isolation. Marcus had been careful. He'd told people the truth, but only after documenting everything. Only after making sure I had no credibility left. Only after making sure that when he left, no one would blame him. Dr. Chen had coached him well. I showed up at her office Monday morning. The building was the same, but everything felt different. Dented. The receptionist saw me coming and immediately picked up the phone. "I just want to talk to her," I said. "Dr. Chen has made it clear she has no interest in speaking with you. If you don't leave, I'll call security." She slept with my husband while treating me. "That's illegal." "That's..." "Do you have proof?" The receptionist's voice was ice. "Because Dr. Chen has 6 months of documented concern about your mental state, your paranoid accusations, your inability to accept responsibility for your behavior. She's prepared to testify that your claims are part of a delusional pattern." I stood there, understanding with perfect clarity that they'd thought of everything. Every angle. Every defense. They'd built a fortress around their betrayal using my own broken pieces as bricks. "She won?" I whispered. The receptionist almost looked sympathetic. "Almost. You lost the moment you stopped fighting for your marriage and started fighting against it." I went back to work on Tuesday. Had to. The bills wouldn't stop coming just because my life had ended. Jake saw me in the hallway and literally turned around and walked the other direction. By lunch, I knew everyone in the office had heard everything. The whispers followed me everywhere. The looks. The sudden silence when I entered rooms. The way conversation stopped mid-sentence. Emma from accounting cornered me by the coffee machine. Is it true? About you and Jake? It's complicated. It's really not. She poured her coffee without looking at me. You cheated on your husband. With a co-worker. While your husband was trying to save your marriage. There's nothing complicated about that. You don't understand. I understand that my husband and I have problems too. Everyone does. I don't solve them by hooking up with someone from sales. She walked away, leaving me standing there with my empty cup. That night, I tried Marcus's number again. Still blocked. I sent an email. Please. I need to talk to you. I need to understand. I need closure. He responded an hour later. First contact in 6 days. The message was 2 sentences. You had 6 months to talk. You chose silence and lies. That door is closed now. I typed and deleted 100 responses. Apologies. Accusations. Please. Nothing felt right because nothing could fix what I'd broken. Finally, I just wrote, I'm sorry. He never responded. The divorce moved fast. Marcus wanted it done. Wanted me gone from his life completely. Michelle tried to negotiate, but we had no leverage. I'd admitted to the affair. I had no evidence of his. Dr. Chen's notes painted me as unstable and unfaithful. I was going to lose the house, most of our savings, everything. You could fight, Michelle said during one meeting. Drag it out. Make them prove their relationship. It would cost more and you'd probably still lose, but it might feel better to make them work for it. I thought about it. About making Marcus sit through depositions. About forcing Dr. Chen to testify. About airing every piece of our dirty laundry in front of a judge. But I was so tired. Let him have it, I said. All of it. I just want this over. Michelle looked at me with something like respect. Or maybe just relief that I wasn't going to make her job harder. Okay, she said. I'll draw up the papers. I moved out on a Thursday. Marcus made sure to be there, standing in the doorway of the home we'd built together, watching me pack my life into boxes. He didn't help. Didn't speak. Just watched. When I was loading the last box into my car, he finally said something. I tried to love you enough for both of us. Tried to be patient while you figured out what you wanted. Tried to believe you'd choose us eventually. He looked at me with those empty eyes. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. I did want. No. He cut me off. You wanted to be the victim. You wanted to blame me for your unhappiness instead of doing the work to fix it. You wanted the thrill of something new instead of the commitment of something real. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. I drove away from that house with everything I owned in my car and nowhere to go. I'd lost my home, my husband, my friends, my reputation, my self-respect. I'd lost everything that mattered while chasing something that didn't. I rented a studio apartment in a part of town I didn't know. Small. Dark. Nothing like the bright, open home I'd left behind. I unpacked my boxes alone on a Friday night while couples walked past my window holding hands, living the life I'd thrown away. That night, I saw the Facebook post. Marcus had updated his relationship status, in a relationship with Sarah Chen. They weren't even hiding anymore. The comments were full of congratulations. So happy for you. You deserve this. Beautiful couple. People who'd known both of us. People who'd been at our wedding. People who'd watched me destroy everything and had chosen their side. I scrolled through the photos he'd posted. Marcus and Sarah at a restaurant. Marcus and Sarah on a hike. Marcus and Sarah laughing at some inside joke I'd never be part of. He looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy in a way he hadn't looked with me in years. Because I'd killed that happiness one selfish choice at a time. I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by boxes I didn't have the energy to unpack, and finally understood what I'd really lost. Not just a husband. Not just a home. Not just a life. I'd lost the person I used to be. The woman who'd walked down that aisle 7 years ago believing in forever. The woman who'd promised to love him in good times and bad. The woman who'd had the capacity to put someone else first. That woman was gone. I'd killed her slowly, replaced her with someone selfish and hollow and cruel. Someone who chose temporary pleasure over permanent commitment. Someone who blamed everyone else for problems she'd created. Someone I didn't even recognize anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Sarah. Marcus asked me to let you know the divorce will be final next week. Please don't contact him again. He's moved on. You should too. I stared at that message for a long time. At the casual cruelty of it. At the certainty that she'd won and I'd lost and there was nothing left to fight for. I typed back, Tell him I hope you make him happier than I did. He deserves that." She never responded. I spent that night alone in the dark, understanding that this was my life now. This emptiness. This isolation. This endless loop of regret and self-recrimination. I'd walked into the therapist's office 6 months ago thinking I needed someone to validate my unhappiness. Instead, I'd found someone who'd helped my husband walk away from me without an ounce of guilt. The divorce was final on a Tuesday. I didn't go to the courthouse. Michelle handled everything remotely. She called me at 3 p.m. to confirm it was done. "You're officially divorced," she said. "The papers will arrive by mail in a few days. I'm sorry it ended this way. Thank you for everything. Take care of yourself," she said, and I could hear the unspoken ending to that sentence, "because no one else will." I hung up and sat in my studio apartment, newly single, and felt absolutely nothing. The numbness lasted 3 days. Then it hit all at once. I was at the grocery store, turning down the coffee aisle, when I saw them. Marcus and Sarah. His arm around her waist. Her head on his shoulder. Both of them laughing at something on his phone. They looked like every happy couple I'd ever envied. Like we used to look. Sarah saw me first. Whispered something to Marcus. He looked up, saw me standing there frozen with my empty basket, and his face went completely neutral. Not angry. Not sad. Not anything. He looked at me like I was a stranger. They turned and walked the other direction without a word. I abandoned my basket in the middle of the aisle and drove home with blurred vision, barely making it inside before the sobs took over. I cried for hours. For the man I'd lost. For the woman I used to be. For every choice that had led me to this moment. When I was empty, hollowed out and raw, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I searched for Dr. Sarah Chen's credentials. Her practice. Her history. She'd been reported twice before. Once for boundary violations with a patient's family member. Once for inappropriate dual relationships. Both times, the complaints had been dismissed due to lack of evidence. Both times, she'd moved to a new practice and started over. I was her third victim. Or maybe I was her accomplice. I couldn't tell any more. I called the licensing board anyway. Told them everything. The affair. The therapy notes used against me. The coordination between her and Marcus. The woman on the phone listened patiently and then said, "Do you have proof of the relationship existing during your treatment period?" I heard them discussing it. "Do you have recordings? Text messages? Any documentation?" "No." "Then I'm sorry. But without concrete evidence, we can't investigate. It would be your word against a licensed therapist with an established practice. She's done this before. And those complaints were investigated and dismissed. I understand you're going through a difficult time, but false accusations against a therapist during a contentious divorce are unfortunately common." She thought I was lying. Thought I was a scorned wife making things up for revenge. Maybe that's exactly what Sarah had counted on. I went back to work the next day and found a meeting request from HR. My stomach dropped. Karen from Human Resources sat across from me with a manila folder and an expression I couldn't read. "We need to discuss a complaint we received," she said. "About what?" "Jake from marketing reported that you've been harassing him. Showing up at his desk. Sending unwanted messages. Making his work environment uncomfortable." My mouth fell open. "That's not true. I haven't even spoken to him since." "Since the affair ended?" Karen's voice was gentle but firm. "Look, I understand you're going through a divorce. That's difficult. But we can't have personal matters affecting the workplace. Several people have reported feeling uncomfortable around you. The whispers, the tension, it's impacting team morale. Are you firing me? No. But we're suggesting you take some time off. Paid leave. Get yourself sorted out. Come back when you're ready to maintain professional boundaries. This is because I had an affair. This is because you had an affair with a co-worker, and now the fallout is affecting multiple departments. We're trying to protect everyone here, including you." I took the leave. What choice did I have? 2 weeks of paid isolation in my studio apartment with nothing but my thoughts and regrets for company. I tried to stay busy. Cleaned obsessively. Organized closets that were already organized. Went for long walks at odd hours when I wouldn't run into people I knew. But the thoughts always caught up. I'd replay that moment outside Dr. Chen's office. Wonder what would have happened if I'd walked in. Confronted them. Fought for my marriage instead of slinking away in shame. But I already knew the answer. I'd lost the right to fight when I'd started sleeping with Jake. I'd surrendered my moral high ground the first time I'd lied to Marcus about working late. Sarah hadn't stolen my husband. I'd handed him to her on a silver platter, wrapped in my own betrayals. My mom called on a Sunday. We hadn't spoken since I'd told her about the divorce. Your father and I have been talking, she said without preamble. We think you should come stay with us for a while. I'm fine here. You're not fine. You've lost everything and you're hiding in that apartment feeling sorry for yourself. I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I'm taking responsibility. Are you? Her voice was sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, you're wallowing. You made terrible choices. You hurt someone who loved you. But you're still here. You still have a life to live. The question is, are you going to waste it drowning in guilt or are you going to do something with it? I didn't have an answer. Come home, she said, softer now. Let us help you figure out what comes next. But I couldn't. Couldn't face them. Couldn't sit at their dinner table and see the disappointment in their eyes. Couldn't pretend I deserved their comfort when I'd destroyed everything through my own selfishness. I need to do this alone, I said. She sighed. Okay. But we're here when you're ready. I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. The Facebook posts continued. Marcus and Sarah at concerts. Marcus and Sarah at his company retreat. Marcus and Sarah moving in together. I should have stopped looking. Should have blocked him. Should have cut that cord completely. But I couldn't. It was like pressing on a bruise, checking if it still hurt. It always did. One night, drunk on cheap wine in my dark apartment, I messaged him. Broke the no-contact agreement. Broke my own promise to leave him alone. I miss you. I miss us. I miss the people we used to be. He responded immediately. Like he'd been waiting for me to break. There is no us. There never will be again. Every time you contact me, you make it harder for me to move on. Please. For both of us. Stop. I just need you to know I'm sorry. For everything. For not being enough. For throwing away what we had. For not fighting harder when it mattered. The three dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. You were enough. That's the part you still don't get. I didn't leave because you weren't enough. I left because you stopped trying. You stopped choosing me. You stopped choosing us. And by the time I realized what was happening, you'd already moved on to someone else. You moved on too. With Sarah. After I'd already lost you. After months of trying to reach you while you were texting Jake during our dinner dates. While you were lying about where you'd been. While you were treating our marriage like an obligation instead of a choice. A pause. Sarah listened when I talked. She saw me when you'd stopped looking. Yes, it was wrong. Yes, we crossed lines that shouldn't have been crossed. But I was drowning and you were the one holding me underwater. My hands shook as I typed. So it's my fault you cheated? It's your fault our marriage died. What I did after that was my choice, and I own it. But don't pretend you didn't create the circumstances that led here. Don't pretend you're the victim when you fired the first shot. I loved you. No. You loved the idea of me. You loved what I provided. You loved feeling wanted by someone new more than you loved the commitment we made. Love is a choice you make every single day. You stopped choosing me long before I stopped choosing you. Do you love her? The response took a long time to come. Yes, I do. She makes me feel seen in ways I'd forgotten were possible. She makes me feel like I'm at her. Like I'm not just a paycheck and a warm body sharing space with someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Another pause. I hope you find that someday. With someone who isn't me. Someone you'll actually fight for. I fought for you. You fought with me. Never for me. There's a difference. And by the time you figured that out, it was too late. He went offline. Blocked me again. I threw my phone across the room and watched it shatter against the wall. Just like everything else I'd touched. I started therapy again. A new therapist this time. Dr. Martinez, recommended by my insurance company. No personal connection to Marcus. No hidden agenda. She listened to my story without judgment and then asked a question that broke me. What do you think you were really looking for when you started the affair with Jake? I don't know. Attention? Validation? Someone who saw me as more than just Marcus's wife? And did you find it? I thought about Jake. About how he'd ended things. About how he'd called me a project he didn't want to finish. About how he'd told HR I was harassing him even though I'd left him alone for weeks. No, I whispered. I found someone who was using me the same way I was using him. And when it stopped being convenient, he threw me away. How did that feel? Like I deserved it. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Here's what I'm hearing. You were unhappy in your marriage. Instead of doing the hard work of fixing it or leaving it honestly, you looked for external validation. When that blew up, you lost everything. Now you're sitting in that loss, punishing yourself, but you're still not asking the important question. What question? Why weren't you enough for yourself? Why did you need Marcus or Jake or anyone else to make you feel valuable? What were you running from? I didn't have an answer. Not then. But over the following weeks, in session after session, I started to unpack it. The pattern that had been there long before Marcus. The need for constant validation. The fear of being alone with myself. The way I'd built my entire identity around being wanted by someone else. I'd never learned to be okay on my own. So when Marcus's attention faded, I'd sought it elsewhere. And when that wasn't enough, I'd burned everything down rather than face the emptiness inside. You can't fix a marriage when you haven't fixed yourself, Dr. Martinez said one session. Marcus didn't complete you. Jake didn't complete you. No one can complete you. That's work you have to do alone. So I tried. Started doing the work. The real work. Went back to work after my leave. Kept my head down. Did my job. Ignored the whispers that had faded to background noise. Jake left the company 2 months later. Heard through the grapevine he'd gotten a job in another city. Probably ran from the mess we'd created together. I didn't feel anything about it. Started running. Every morning at 5 a.m. Before the world woke up. Ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached and I couldn't think about anything except putting one foot in front of the other. Started eating better. Sleeping better. Taking care of the body I'd neglected while I was busy destroying my life. Started journaling. Pages and pages of unfiltered truth about who I'd been and who I wanted to become. Slowly, painfully, I started to recognize myself again. Not the woman Marcus had married. Not the woman who'd cheated with Jake. But someone new. Someone who'd looked at her worst self and decided to try to be better. 6 months after the divorce, I saw them again. Marcus and Sarah at a restaurant where I was meeting my mom for lunch. She'd finally convinced me to let her help. They didn't see me. Too wrapped up in each other. He was showing her something on his phone. She was laughing. He kissed her forehead. It still hurt. But it was a different kind of hurt. Not the raw, screaming agony of fresh loss. More like an old scar that ached when the weather changed. That's him? My mom asked, following my gaze. That's him. He looks happy. He does. Are you okay? I watched them for another moment. Watched Marcus be the man I remembered. The man I'd taken for granted. The man I'd lost through my own choices. I'm getting there, I said. And meant it. My mom squeezed my hand. That's all anyone can ask. We sat down at a table on the other side of the restaurant. Ordered food. Talked about normal things. She told me about Dad's new hobby. I told her about her project at work. And for an hour, I felt almost normal. When we left, I walked past their table. Marcus looked up. Our eyes met. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. An acknowledgement. A goodbye. A release. He nodded back. And in that small gesture, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Just closure. I walked out of that restaurant alone but not lonely. Different but not destroyed. I'd thrown away the best thing in my life chasing something that didn't exist. I'd hurt someone who loved me. I'd betrayed every value I thought I had. I'd become someone I despised. But I was still here. Still breathing. Still trying. The work wasn't done. Maybe it never would be. I'd carry this guilt for the rest of my life. Would always wonder what could have been if I'd made different choices. Would always see Marcus's empty eyes when he told me he'd stopped loving me. But I was learning to live with it. Learning that regret doesn't have to be a prison. Learning that you can be the villain of your own story and still try to write a better ending. I'd lost my husband to the therapist I'd trusted, but really, I'd lost him long before that. Lost him the first time I'd chosen Jake over date night. The first time I'd lied about working late. The first time I'd stopped seeing Marcus as a person and started seeing him as an obstacle to my happiness. Sarah hadn't stolen him. I'd pushed him away until he fell into her arms. And now they were building a life together on the rubble of what I'd destroyed. That was my legacy. My cautionary tale. My permanent reminder of what happens when you stop fighting for what matters. I opened my journal that night and wrote one sentence. I destroyed my marriage because I was too broken to fix myself. And by the time I realized what I'd lost, someone else was already loving him the way I should have all along. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I closed the journal and turned off the light. Tomorrow I'd wake up and try again. Try to be better. Try to forgive myself even though I probably didn't deserve it. Try to live with the fact that the person who'd loved me most in the world had found that love again with someone else. And that it was nobody's fault but mine. The hardest part of being the villain isn't the public shame or the loss or even the guilt. It's knowing that somewhere out there, Your ex-husband is building the life you could have had with the woman who helped him escape from you, and they're probably happier than you ever made them because you taught them exactly what not to do.